How's it going, guys? So we are back with another pick brand breakdown. This week with the first matches of the LCK Summer. So I'm very excited to go ahead and bring this game. So we're going to go ahead and start off with Anarchy and Najin. So it was the first game of the season, first opening game. Something I was really excited about. Anarchy didn't really show up too much in the promotionals. I mean, they played relatively well, but they got kind of their heads smashed in a little bit against the incumbents, and so they made it into the LCK as the better of the two amateur teams in their group. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get right into the match here and into their pick bands. So I have it on double the speed here, so it might take a little bit longer for it to load in here just a little bit. But yeah, so they're gonna go ahead and ban out the Azir, the Thresh being taken away from Najin. And so what you're going to see is a really heavy mid lane focus against Najin from Anarchy. I'm not entirely sure if that's just due to the fear of Goong or that the fact that they wanted to get Mickey on a sort of priority champion. They're going to take away the Cassiopeia, the Kalista being banned out for Najin. And so we'll go into these picks a little bit more in depth. As soon as they go through pick bans, we're going to go ahead and get into it more in depth. But then they're going to see Anarchy take away the Lulu. So that's three kind of mid lane focused bans there, and then Najin's going to go ahead and take out the Zed. So we're going to go ahead and pause here and take a look at just the bans in general. So Anarchy going ahead and taking away Azir, Cassiopeia, and Lulu. That's a lot of mid lane focus. So Mickey does play some of those champions, but he is more sort of accustomed onto assassin types like Zed, like the LeBlanc, Talon, things like that. Ari even a little bit, and so them taking away three champions that are more mage style, it does make a lot of sense. Goong of course playing a lot of those as well, so it makes sense to take a lot of that away. So it might be more of a fear against Goong, or the fact that they want Mickey to go ahead and be comfortable and have something that and be take out champions that he feels is a threat to him. On the other side, Najin, the bans are a little strange. Snowflower does play some Thresh, but Pure is definitely the better Thresh player. So I'm not entirely sure there. And also, Pure does have, in my opinion, the wider champion pool in terms of supports and what he can play. So I'm not entirely sure why that was the first ban. Most of the time, Thresh isn't really banned. It's just more of a pick. It's sort of just the best generalist support pick. That people kind of leave up as either counter or anything like that to something else that might be picked up. The Zed makes sense because again Mickey does play more assassin style mid laners, and Goong, as he doesn't really play too much Zed. I mean, of course he plays Zed, but it's not too much. He's more accustomed onto the mage type of champion, so the Xerath, the Azir, the Kassadin as well, things like that. And so the strange one to me is OQ, with Najin banning Kalista. OQ is very comfortable on Kalista. Sangyun not so much. I would say OQ is definitely the more comfortable Kalista player here. So it's just strange to see the Thresh and Kalista bans coming out from Najin's side. And again, those two picks aren't something that you're going to go ahead and first pick, so that's something that you could have left on the board, at least in my opinion. Maybe it's more of them just sort of testing the waters out with Anarchy and seeing, what are they going to go ahead and pick up? What is the pick ban strategy going to be like? We didn't really see too much in that promotional tournament. I'm not entirely sure how involved Najin was in looking at that promotional tournament, or even the challenger scene and seeing what they were coming up with, how deep their research goes. And so we'll maybe see this adjust throughout the entire season. Now, we're going to go ahead and get into picks here. You're going to go ahead and see Anarchy pick up the first pick LeBlanc. And again, this just completely solidifies their mid lane focus here. So again, they have three mid lane bans as well as the first pick mid laner. So it's a lot of pressure on Mickey and a lot of confidence that they're showing in Mickey and a lot of maybe fears they're showing in Goong, but they are giving Goong the counter pick. You're going to see Najin take the very, very easy sort of Maokai, Gragas, two very high priority picks here. Junglers weren't touched at all in this pick ban, so it's really interesting to see that they would go for the Gragas over something like a Rek'Sai or an Evelynn that we're seeing in some of the other regions. And so yeah, I'm curious to see where they go there, but Yeah, Maokai and Gragas, just two very standard power picks in the meta right now. So Anarchy is going to go ahead and answer that with the Rek'Sai Gnar. Again, two very very strong power picks. They first picked the LeBlanc, but uh, they still do get a lot of power picks in there as well. So they get Mickey with that safety, and maybe that's probably why they didn't pick up the another power pick there, because they knew they can get one of the two power picks in either the top or jungle. Now, Najin's going to go ahead and grab the Kassadin and the Alistar. Right now, the Kassadin and the Alistar are both give them a lot of opportunity to dive along with the Gragas and the Maokai. The Maokai going into that backline, Kassadin going ahead and rift walking back there, the Alistar bumping someone out and keeping these carries safe as everyone dives in. Gragas being able to explosive cast everyone away. It just seems like a little bit of a strange comp from Najin, just because they do have a lot of engage and dive, but a lot of disengage as well with that Alistar and the Gragas, so they kind of don't synergize correctly. For Kassadin to rift walk, you really want everyone clumped to get the AoE in, but Gragas, of course, gets people knocked away, and so does Alistar, so it's a little interesting there. On the other side, we do see a lot of, again, dive as well with the Rek'Sai tunnels, the Gnar being able to leap in and ult them and stun them all in, LeBlanc being able to just sort of distort and get to the back line as well and chain someone up. It just seems a lot more synergistic because of the amounts of knockup and the amounts of stun that they have coming in, a hard CC, and a lot, just synchronized synergized to dive from that team comp. So team fight wise, that might be a little bit stronger. So Anarchy is going to go ahead and round out the comp with their bot lane. The Janna, I'm very surprised, gets through to the end of this draft, as well as the Lucian. The Lucian, not extremely strong right now, but I mean still a strong, solid AD carry. I would have liked to see something a little more hyper carry, but I mean with the amount of dive they have, they do need something that's a little more mobile. I would have liked to see maybe an Ezreal to sort of synergize with the mid-game power spike that they're all going to have here. Except for the LeBlanc, of course. The LeBlanc is going to scale a little bit more into the late game. But LeBlanc still is, if she can get snowballing, and they have such a mid lane focus, I would have liked to see that. They could have snowballed that into a mid-game power spike along with the Ezreal and the Ezreal, the Gnar, and the Rek'Sai. But again, Lucian is still a really strong pick. Great laning potential, and trading potential. And again, not a horrible mid-game power spike, but just not as strong as something like an Ezreal with a little more burst. Same thing goes with the Janna here. The Janna is going to be able to not only engage, but disengage as well and sort of reset the fight. So you do see a lot of dive, again, coming out from Najin. They want to go ahead and create opportunities to fight. But John is going to go ahead and allow them to disengage and get those comps reset and those fights reset so they can go back in on their terms. So Pure is going to go ahead and pick up the Vayne for Najin. That's extremely, extremely risky, especially with the amount of sort of dive that we've been talking about that Najin has. They do have the front line to go ahead and protect Vayne. They do have the front line to go ahead and protect Vayne, but I'm not entirely sure the idea that they're going with here for how exactly you're going to keep the Vayne protected. They have the amount of, or the comp just seems a little bit against itself, pretty much. The Maokai and Kassadin are going to be diving into that backline, and then Gragas and Alistar are going to be able to sit back and protect and peel for the Vayne. But with the headbutts, with the explosive cast, there has to be a lot of communication to make sure that those spells and abilities aren't hurting either the Vayne, meaning hitting people into the Vayne, or messing up the AoE coming out from Gragas and Maokai. So it's very interesting to see there. On the other side, Anarchy, again, does have a little more synergistic comp. They have everyone wants to dive in, go in. They have the mobility to do so, and then they have the Janna there for the disengage and for the reset to make sure that they can get fights on their own terms and make sure everything's stable. So a little bit interesting there, a little bit different from both sides. I would say, just based on picks and bans, Anarchy did win this side of the game one. But yeah, pretty much that's the breakdown for the pick ban of game one. Najin ended up winning the game at the 47-minute mark, 47 minutes and 4 seconds to be exact. so they didn't quite, or the comp didn't hurt them as much as it probably would have, because it did go late game. They had the better late game scaling, especially with the Vayne Kassadin damage composition coming out. However, Anarchy did show sort of the faults in their comp, or in Najin's comp, through the early and mid game stages. So not entirely off there, but still something to just be aware of. Now, we're going to go ahead and get into game 2 here after that game. Now, a little bit different here. Najin's now on blue side. So they're going to go ahead and take away the Hecarim. That's something that wasn't touched on either side, which is a little bit surprising. They're going to go ahead and take out the Thresh as well. Anarchy taking out the Callista, as well as the Azir. And so a little bit moving away from that mid-game focus, but still a pretty big mid-lane pressure here from both teams. The Zed being taken away from Najin, and then also Anarchy is going to go ahead and take away the LeBlanc as their last ban. Now, we'll go ahead and pause here, go over the bans once again. The Hecarim being taken away, I think that's extremely smart. Hecarim is one of the best backline divers that we have in the game right now. But that was something that wasn't touched on in the other games. Or in the first game, I'm pretty surprised that it wasn't. Although it didn't really fit into either comp that either team was going for. So I can see the potential of why they would take that away, even though they do have first pick. Maybe it's something they just don't highly prioritize. Same thing goes with the and all these other bans we've seen going on before. The Thresh, again, just a very strange ban. I'm not entirely sure why they're banning that out, why they're so scared of Snowflower playing that. The Callista makes more sense this time because Anarchy banned it, just because, again, OQ has shown that he's very proficient on that champion. Same thing goes with Azir and LeBlanc on Anarchy. They don't want those to be first picked, and they're, again, showing a lot of mid lane focus onto Goong. And so, yeah, and the Zed, of course, coming out for Mickey as well. Same thing going on there. But yeah, overall, the only strange picks the only strange bans that I'm seeing here are is just the Thresh, and a little bit the Hecarim because they can first pick it, but it might be something that they just don't highly prioritize. Now we're gonna go ahead and get into the picks here. The Gragas being first picked, again, that's something that they was very important for them last game, and it shows a little bit more importance here. Having them first pick, a lot of high priority there. We're going to go ahead and see Anarchy pick up the Maokai and the Evelynn. The Evelynn, something that has sort of been up and coming in other regions, in China and in a little bit in Korea. We saw, I think SKT played it, or Bengi played it at MSI, and so it is sort of making a resurgence here. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and see what's quite happening there and how this sort of plays out. But we're starting to see that shift in the meta just a little bit, and the Maokai again being such a high priority pick, that, in my opinion, one of the best tank top laners you ever have in the game. Just the CC bot, this train that you can't kill, it's going to go ahead and hold down targets for 10-15 seconds at a time. That's just going to be irritating and annoying, just to get the way his cooldowns work and the way his passive works with the way he heals, and everything like that. Just makes him extremely hard to kill, and just the CC chain that can really disrupt the backline. Now, Najin's going to go ahead and take the Alistar once again, as well as the Cassiopeia. So the Cassiopeia was left up this time. Goong takes that right away, insta-locks that pretty much, and then Watch goes ahead and picks up the Alistar for Pure. This comp, I like this a lot better with the Gragas Alistar. This Gragas Alistar combo, I like that a lot better than with the Cassiopeia rather than the Kassadin. I think Cassiopeia's ability to kite a little bit more, and her ability to sort of get those slows out and sort of work on her own a little more than Kassadin will. Kassadin, of course, has the ability to dive in, and he's going to get pretty tanky. But Cassiopeia does have the ultimate that can stun people, as well as a lot of slows and ways that she can survive on her own. So in case one or two people get knocked into her with a misfired ultimate or a headbutt, she can be perfectly fine going ahead and kiting that back and surviving for as long as she possibly can. A lot better than Kassadin can, because once Kassadin does use all those cooldowns, he's a little bit more like a sitting duck. Now, Anarchy is going to respond to this with the Ahri and again with the Lucian. The Lucian wasn't a big problem the last game. I think it was actually one of their strongest points. And going ahead and picking up that Ahri again, Mickey going with these assassins that he's extremely comfortable on, and being able to go ahead and blow up a target like he did with the LeBlanc. With the LeBlanc taken out that they banned themselves, Ahri is pretty much the second best option to go ahead and just blow someone up. This comp looks, again, very synergistic, very nice comp from Anarchy here. Everyone's very mobile. Everyone's going to want to be able to get into that back line, blow someone up, pick up priority targets, and then have Lucian sort of dance around the outside. I'm curious to see if what they kind of round off with, but yeah, so far I really do like the comp. The Najin comp, now they're going to go ahead and pick up the Corki and the Gnar. Now again, they pretty much have you're switching top laners here, so again I think Gnar does have an early laning advantage against Maokai just with the amount of poke and the range that he provides. But I think Maokai does scale a lot better, especially because Gnar does have to play around that ultimate transformation timing. So it makes it very interesting and very difficult to sort of play around that if you're not being extremely careful. And the Corki, again, I like the fact that Najin's playing around this mid-game power spike that they're going to have. The Cassiopeia and the Gragas do start to scale up pretty well as the Gnar. I think Gnar's strongest point in time is his mid-game once he starts getting tanky, and I don't think when he can output damage at a consistent rate as well as being pretty tanky, considering the amount of items that everyone else is going to have. I don't think it's necessarily Gnar's power spike, so to speak. I just think it's the strongest point he has in the game, where he's equally doing damage and being unkillable just by the way that other people's power spikes are working out. If that makes sense. The Corki does give them a lot of mobility, again, just in case there's a lack of communication with the Alistar and Gragas combos, and so Cassiopeia and Corki are going to be able to stay relatively safe, as well as that having that Gnar there for the gigantic CC chain is something that I really think works really well with Najin's comp. Now Anarchy's going to go ahead and pick up their support pick, and it's going to be that Annie. I think this Anarchy comp is extremely strong, although it's extremely risky. So they want to go ahead, get a stun onto someone, or get into that back line and just completely blow up targets as quickly as they can. Pick out priority targets, get them down, and then work down the tanks as sort of slow or quickly as possible by kiting and getting them out. That also helps with Najin's comp as well. So Anarchy wants to go ahead and blow up the Corki and the and the Cassiopeia as quickly as possible with the Annie stun, with Evelynn ulti, Ahri ulti, everything they possibly can, just go ahead and blow up those backline targets. At the same time, they do have Gragas and Gnar and Alistar. So Alistar is going to be able to go ahead, if they get back in there, CC chain them out. Same thing goes with the Gnar and the Gragas to go ahead and reset the fight. And same thing goes for being able to put out damage. They're not pure tanks, they're more off tanks, and they'll be able to go ahead and chase down and work out their way throughout a whole fight. So I think here Najin does have the advantage, but Anarchy's comp I could see working really, really well if they can get the correct comps and work it correctly. I just think it's extremely risky comp to go ahead and pull out here in this particular situation. But yeah, I think Anarchy's comp is better if it works, and Najin's comp is just more consistent. But yeah, and Anarchy did end up winning this game at 41 minutes, so they did get all of their late game scaling with the Ahri, with the Annie putting out quite a bit of damage, and yeah, they were able to go ahead and pull out that game. I think in that game also they just didn't. Najin just didn't get the impact they wanted from Goong's Cassiopeia, and that was a big problem that they had. So we're gonna go ahead and get into game 3. All the games were extremely close, and now so we're at 1-1. We're gonna go ahead and get into the bans here as well. Azir being taken out again, something that Anarchy just really doesn't want to see. Najin taking out the Evelynn. So Anarchy is going to go ahead, take out the Azir, the Gragas, and the Alistar. While Najin's going to go ahead, take out the Evelynn, Rek'Sai, and Kalista. So again, we're gonna go ahead and reiterate this fact. I'm not entirely sure why they keep banning out Callista. Uh, Seeing how Sangwon again doesn't really play it, or he hasn't proven that he can play it, and OQ has shown that he can, that it is a high priority pick for him. The Gragas finally being taken away from Watch, something that he's shown a lot of impact on in every one of the games so far in this set, and the Alistair being taken away, so that combo finally being banned out and sort of taken care of. Something that Anarchy has had a problem dealing with in these last few games, and of course the Azir still, but this is the first game that we're not seeing that heavy mid-game focus coming out from Anarchy. Same thing goes for Najin. Najin taking out the Rek'Sai, the Callista, and the Evelynn, so a lot more jungle focus here. Lyra sort of showing that, yeah, he is a threat, someone that they do need to ban out. He did have a huge impact on that last game with his Evelynn. Same thing goes with the game on his Rek'Sai. He had some great matches there. But yeah, again, this is the first game that we're seeing the Thresh come out and being able to be picked. Same thing goes for the Hecarim being able to be picked once again. So it'll be interesting to see if they do go for that. They don't, but I'm not entirely sure why they're not. But still something that it should be aware, or should be touched upon. Now, Maokai being first picked here, just a standard power pick, something that they want to go ahead and get their basis front line down, especially with a lot of the frontline tanks being taken away, or with the jungle sort of off tanks being taken out. So Najin is going to go ahead pick up the Sejuani as well as the Thresh. So Pure and Najin are going ahead and prioritizing that Thresh extremely high. That's something that we don't really see too much of in terms of, well, we see it being highly prioritized. We just don't see it banned out. And so I'm guessing that the Thresh, they do value that Thresh so much they're going ahead and first picking it. That does explain why they were banning it out as well. And maybe that's something that they just don't want Snowflower to play. So it works on both ways, and maybe it could work either way here. But the Sejuani is the really kind of important one that I want to touch on. The Sejuani pick, I think Sejuani is extremely strong. She gives so much CC, so much tank, and has a lot of high base damage stats that can go ahead, and she can kind of duel with a lot of different junglers. So especially with the Rek'Sai and the Gragas being taken out, two junglers that are going to be able to duel her in the jungle, it's something that really helps her sustain and get ahead, or help keep her ahead and get going. Without having to fight or worry about dueling too much. There are other duelists, so like Jarvan's another one that can go ahead and duel with the Sejuani, but yeah, not something too strong here. Now the Jarvan and the Morgana being taken here. The Morgana I can see working in mid or support, although again it's something that Mickey doesn't really play. So I'm curious to see why they took it here this early, especially now with the Thresh being locked in for Pure. So it's something that does go ahead and help counter the Thresh with the spell shield, as well as helping with the bindings and things like that to go ahead and sort of negate some of Thresh's CC abilities and maybe input a little bit more damage onto that. But the thing that kind of is more important here is the Jarvan. The Jarvan, again, something that can go ahead and duel with the Sejuani. The Sejuani has trouble if she gets behind in the jungle, so I could see a lot of counter invading going on from Jarvan. And yeah, moving on from there. Najin's going to go ahead now and pick up the Gnar and the Lucian. So now we have Lucian picked up in every game here. It's the first time that Oki's going to go ahead and get his hands on it. Duke getting back onto that Gnar that he was in game 1 that had a huge impact. Extremely important pick for him. The composition here is showing a lot, again, of CC chaining, a lot of frontline focus. Not as much dive, though. Sejuani doesn't really want to dive the backline. She can, but her movement ability more so stops at wherever she hits first. So it's more about just locking down everyone and being able to single out the backline targets. So maybe stunning and CCing that front line to stop them from protecting that backline. And then the Gnar going ahead and jumping in and being able to ulti everyone and stun everyone and get everyone out of there. Thresh being able to go in, put the box down, slow down the target, stop them from running away. So it's easier to hit down the Gnar or Sejuani ultimates. And then Lucian, again, giving that mobility, being able to move around the battle as quickly as possible and reposition himself. Now, the damage threats coming out from Anarchy are going to be Corki as well as the Zed. So Mickey going ahead and picking up that Zed that Najin has shown that they've been so scared of him playing this entire time. Uh, and so Mickey does play a lot of Zed. It's something that he's pretty known for, and did have pretty good showings for. The only issue that I do see here is that they don't have a lot of AP damage. They have a support AP pick with Morgana as well as sort of the hybrid damage coming out from Corki, but they don't have a pure AP damage dealer, and so that could be a little bit of an issue. Just because as the game gets later and later, they are going to have an issue with armor stacking, if that is the case. But overall, the comp looks very, very strong. You have a lot of lockdown coming in from Maokai and Jarvan, as well as a little bit from the Morgana. And so, Najin's not going to want to get into those fights. They have a lot of they're going to be able to turn around fights very, very quickly. Same thing goes for the Zed. The Zed's going to be able to get in, get out, and blow up a target. And Corki's AoE is really going to hurt them, or hurt Najin here with the amount of CC and crowd control, or a lot of CC and just sort of hard CC and ability to keep people in particular areas or clumped up for Anarchy. It also works kind of against Najin's comp as well. Again, we were talking about how Thresh, Sejuani, and Gnar all want to kind of go in with Lucian dancing around by himself. That's perfect pickings. The Lucian's going to be picked off by Zed, and then everyone else is going to be stuck in one particular area while Corki just sort of AoEs them down. And so Najin's last pick is actually a pretty important one. They're going to go with the LeBlanc. The LeBlanc allows them to go ahead and trade those sort of pick comps or trade the picks, so to speak. So if the Zed is going after the Lucian, or if the Corki is going to go ahead and sit in the backline and do some AoE, as Zed goes on Lucian or goes on LeBlanc can just go around, turn around, and just go on to Zed or go on to the Corki and blow up them as well. So it's a lot of back and forth there. I just think that Anarchy has the stronger comp with the way they synergize together. With the amount of AoE coming down, LeBlanc has some AoE with the distortion and everything like that, but Lucian really is really more so single target. When I think the team fights are going to be more AoE based. So I would say Anarchy did win this pick ban phase as well. Anarchy did end up winning the series, so they won it 2-1, and with this game ended at the 34-minute mark. 34 to 35 minute mark, somewhere in between there. And Mickey did have the huge impact. He went 10-0 and 10. Sangyun went 8-2 and 6 on the Corki. So a lot of big carry threats from the Anarchy side, and that front line did a great job of locking down those targets, like we were talking about, and really keeping them focused in. So yeah, that's game one of this matchup for this week, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the pick brand breakdown for this game. We're going to go ahead and get into the Samsung vs Prime one next.